Good Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns back at work in Berea, getting ready for the New Orleans Saints to come into First Energy Stadium in what is expected to be a cold, windy, even a little bit of snow coming up on Saturday afternoon. Some news out of Berea, guys that did not practice today. Nick Chubb with the foot, a no-go. John Johnson III, thigh bruise, didn't practice. Myles Garrett still with the illness. Jadeveon Clowney still in concussion protocol. Mari Cooper still banged up, and Jack Conklin both worked off to the side. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. And Tim, Clowney and Garrett, as well as Nick Chubb, all concerning when you talk relative to this game that's expected to be cold, windy, and that would mean running the football both ways.
Yeah, when you say windy, I think that might be an understatement. I got the weather report right here. We're talking winds 25 to 35 miles an hour at the minimum and gusts over 50. I mean, that's not wind. That's playing in a wind tunnel. So, I mean, that's the kind of game that's conducive pretty much. You're only going to be able to run the football by and large. Maybe you get lucky and one side of the field's better at throwing than the other. But by and large, you're running the football 70 to 80% of the time. It's not a day for the passing game. It's not a day, certainly not a day for the kicking game. And to not have your number one running back or either of your starting defensive ends in the game could be a huge problem. I mean, we saw in the game against Atlanta earlier in the season when the Browns didn't have Myles Garrett or Jadeveon Clowney exactly what happened in that game. And they got run through by that Atlanta Falcons offense. And, I mean, that was in a dome of all places. You put them out in the cold when it's week 16. Like I said, winds almost 50 miles an hour. I'm not a math major. I'm obviously not a meteorologist, so I don't know. I can't do wind chill calculations in my head, but we're talking at least like maybe 10 degrees below wind chill, maybe 15, 20. I don't know. So that is going to be a tough game, and you need all the bodies in there you can get, especially, if you're the Browns and you hope that Nick Chubb can go, because you're going to ask a lot out of Kareem Hunt, Dearness Johnson, and Jerome Ford in that situation if you don't have Nick Chubb.
Yeah, and wind chills are supposed to be below zero, like 8 to 9 is the forecast right now, so we'll see. Deshaun Watson spoke today. Talked about coming to Cleveland and coming here specifically to play in Kevin Stefanski's offense.
It's balance, it's balance, and that's what you got to do. You never show your weaknesses, and you never get too high. You got to just keep that balance and keep it neutral, and being able to talk and communicate. Because if you're too high, then some guys might not be able to react to that on certain situations, and if you're too low, people might not respect that. So with him being balanced and letting he comes over and he tells you the truth and what he saw, and if he messed up, on a situation, he let us know, hey, that's my fault, and that's what you got to do, as a coach and as a leader, just take the blame for every situation, even if the blame is not on you. He does that all the time, and I respect Kevin and I appreciate him, and that's one of the reasons why I chose to come play for him. On that visit, the opportunity to be able to talk ball and just the connection that we had, it wasn't even about selling me on Cleveland and what's here. It was just mostly just all ball. And me and him had the opportunity to meet and talk about that and see what the future can hold and what we can really do in the system together. So that was what I was really excited about and why, I was very high on Cleveland.
So, Tim, we play that. Kevin Stefanski's not going anywhere if anybody even remotely thought he was. Your $230 million quarterback came here to play in this offense. So let's start there. And the other thing he made a point of saying is he appreciated the even keel approach. And you would expect a professional athlete to say that. Might drive fans crazy. Players like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think as a professional, one of the number one things you want is for, your boss or whatever to have, the same type of approach every single day where you don't have unpredictability of how he's going to react to certain things or whatever. So if you know how he's going to be day in and day out, if you have consistency of that personality, I think that goes a long way. And like you said, based on what Deshaun Watson was talking about, it doesn't seem like Kevin Stefanski's going anywhere. I don't think he should go anywhere. I look at, this season where the Browns are, where they are isn't strictly on Kevin Stefanski. I think it's on, just we've seen the defense and the special teams lose plenty of games this season. I mean, You correct even one or two of those, you're talking all of a sudden a 7-7 or even an 8-6 football team, and then all of a sudden you're really talking about potential wild card aspirations. But because of those meltdowns that both the defensive special teams have, that's been the problem. And the offense, with Jacoby Brissett, has certainly did its job of the first 11 weeks. It's gotten them in position to win games. But as I said before, when you have Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback, you need the other parts of the team to step up and win those games, and that simply did not happen. But the investment of Deshaun Watson, it's not about this season. It's about, the next few years. It's about the next 10 to 12 years. And there should be no scenario where we don't get to see what this looks like once Watson and Stefanski have had another full training camp together, where Watson is the undisputed QB1 when he's going into week 1, starting as QB1. And I think that's where we kind of need to see it go to really before we make any evaluations about Kevin Stefanski going forward.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. So this is kind of interesting, the progression of Deshaun Watson through the first 3 games. And you saw first game, it wasn't good. The Bengals game, a little bit better. The grade is higher in game 3. Fans will point, and rightly so, you only got 13 points. But you saw glimpses, I think, of what this offense can and will be. The long drive was in rhythm. You could see the balls coming. It looked effortless, I guess is the way to say it. The offense looked like a good offense. They weren't struggling. There wasn't, the ball was out clean. It was out on time, and it was effective.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're looking for with Deshaun Watson these final 6 games. You're looking to see him become close to the quarterback he was in Houston. And obviously, these last 2 games, we've seen plenty of flashes from that, more so against Baltimore than against Cincinnati. And I think, obviously, people could point to the points as, that's not good enough. 23 points over the course of 2 games is not good enough. But you also have to understand that this is a quarterback trying to find chemistry and rhythm with his receivers and his offensive line and his play caller, and trying to do that against 2 very good defenses in Cincinnati and Baltimore. You're not just playing 11 trash cans out there. You're playing 11 very good football players who have got almost a full season of chemistry built in, and you're jumping in late in the season, and you have to make a lot of adjustments on the fly when it comes to doing those sorts of things. And that's why I think you can look at the points. It's like, yeah, that needs to improve. And of course it does. But that's something I think will improve with time. What we've seen with Deshaun Watson is he just looks more comfortable. It looks like he's, getting back up to NFL speed, something that can only really be done with game reps. He's now got 3 games worth of those reps banked. He's starting to get chemistry with Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku, a little bit with Amari Cooper. I just think as time goes on, we're going to see more of, traditional Deshaun Watson. We don't need to see 100% Deshaun Watson, but I think at the end of the season, you need to see 90% of Deshaun Watson. I think we're about 70 to 75%.
So Watson also talked about what he wants to see from this offense.
I mean, my main thing is just operating the offense. So whatever it takes, if it's running the ball 30 times, if it's passing the ball 40 times, whatever it takes to be able to get that win. That's the ultimate goal. I know a lot of people want highlights and, the big shots that, people were seeing the last time I played, and that's naturally going to come. But, we can't force that issue. And you got to understand that the defense and other teams that we play understand that too. They go back and they have to go back. It's a small, sample size of what I do in this system, so they have to go back in 2020 and watch what I do, and they know that, some things might be similar, some things might be different. So, you just got to take it one play at a time, and, eventually it's going to pop up, and when it comes, we have to take advantage of it.
And, the thing that I like about that is he's not coming out trying to do everything. I like that. That's what I want to hear from my quarterback.
Yeah, right now he's playing within himself, and that's kind of, I think at this point, as he's working his way in, all you could ask for. And I think the last couple of weeks, Kevin Stefanski has done a good job, trying to be careful with him. They're not trying to throw him into the deep end of the pool unless they absolutely have to, like the second half of Cincinnati, for example, when they were down by 17 points. Make sure he's comfortable, make sure that, you're getting all those concepts down. And then, as time goes on, you build onto that. You start building those deep balls, which, I mean, admittedly, like I said before, we're probably not going to see any of those on Saturday. But, those explosive things, I think, will come with time, with an understanding between quarterback and play caller, quarterback receivers, those sorts of things. But what you want to see is operation, how the offense operates. And last Saturday against Baltimore, it looked far more clean than we've seen in the first two games. Watson looked in more control than we've seen so far this season. Just running the offense, making good decisions with the football, running when he has to. And, he understands, obviously, based on that quote, how important offensive balance is, because with the way this personnel is set up, they still need to be able to run the football to have success. And when you have an elite running back like Nick Chubb, you never want to completely go away from that.
All right, before we go to break, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time this afternoon.
Hi, this is Rico. I'm calling in to ask a question about Watson's contract. I'm kind of confused of how fully guaranteed contracts work. Is there a way to restructure his contract if he was willing to restructure so they can sign and or keep good players? If he was willing to restructure, would they go into a signing bonus or would they have voided years? I'm just curious on how fully guaranteed contract works in terms of restructuring. I mean, obviously, Watson needs to be willing to do so. Okay, thanks. Go Brown.
As always, appreciate it. So guaranteed means he's getting the $230 million no matter what. Now, you can take a year of that and convert it into a signing bonus so he gets it all at once, and then that comes off the cap. And Andrew Berry and the Browns are really good at that, better than probably any other team in the NFL.
Yeah, that's why some people say the salary cap is a myth, because so many of these contracts can be manipulated. And really all it takes is for the Browns to restructure one of those big deals, whether it's Watson, whether it's Myles Garrett or Denzel Ward. All it takes is, one of those guys to be willing to restructure the deal, and all of a sudden you have a massive influx of cap space. I know the Browns have about $30 million plus that they're probably going to roll over to next season, which they're going to need right now, because you're going to have Deshaun Watson's cap number is going to go back up into about almost $50 million. So you're going to need that cap space to begin with, and like you said, Watson's got to be willing to restructure the contract if he wants. But if he restructures it, all of a sudden you create a lot of room to add players or to keep your other players on long-term deals. And we've seen Andrew Berry be very creative when it comes to structuring certain contracts. So it wouldn't be a shock to see, him try and get at least one of his big guys to do the restructure and to free up more space, because as we've seen, he really values that rollover space.
Yeah, and he should. The cap will probably go up as well. Cap is a percentage relative to total revenue generated by the league. With sports wagering and that, the salary cap's going up and up and up. The NFL is going to be able to print money because they always can. Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Take a look at some of the defensive side of things. Sports4CLE will be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show. Just want to hear your thoughts on this. So I was watching the show and I seen the caller talk about that the Browns' priority should be wide receiver and linebacker. I'm too much thinking that defensive tackle should be a priority, whether it's free agency or draft or both. That should be a priority. Linebackers, I'm okay with the wide receivers we have. Cooper's great. DPJ's coming along. He's going to be fantastic. And don't forget, we got the veteran Jakeem Grant will be back next year. That's the speed guy that, Deshaun Watson usually has. The guy that's going to run the reverses and that can stretch the field when he comes back healthy. And we'll still have Anthony Schwartz and David Bell. And we got some guys. So I don't think we need to waste a pick to go get a wide receiver. I think the focus should be defensive tackles or bust, whether that be free agency or the draft or both. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, I've said the last couple of days, I think if you get some defensive tackles that can take on double teams that are a little bit bigger, a little bit stouter, it will allow your fast, undersized linebackers to play like they want to play. And to a certain extent, I don't think the scheme doesn't fit what the Browns have. That's just my opinion.
Just like how a good offensive line can help out a running back and make their life easier, I think the same thing applies with defensive linemen and linebackers. And, I'm kind of with you on this, that I think the biggest thing the Browns could do for themselves is get themselves, that big 320, 330-pound defensive tackle, maybe a borderline nose who's a guy whose job is just to eat up blocks in the middle, kind of do the dirty work on the inside, and then free up everybody else. Because you look at what the Browns have at linebacker, obviously they have J.O.K., who we don't know if he's going to play again. We don't know what he's going to look like in 2023. I still have a lot of high expectations for him, and I think he'll get there. Yeah, and there's some question marks at linebacker. The way you help them out is if you can win up front on the interior. And we've just seen the interior of this defensive line just has not been good enough this season. And that's something Andrew Berry is going to have to hit hard and hit from multiple facets. I think that's got to be their free agent priority, is getting themselves a veteran defensive tackle who can really play in the interior. I haven't looked as deeply into who could be available. Certainly other guys will pop in the market that we don't know about. Guys, that are in there right now will probably could get franchised, like Daron Payne from Washington. I think that's been a popular choice among some fans. So either way, that's the position you really have to shore up significantly in the offseason.
I would agree. And I get what they were thinking. They're thinking we need guys that can run and cover because we're going to face Boyd, Higgins, Chase, all the wide receivers that the Chiefs throw at you, the Bills with Diggs and Davis, but you've invited teams to run on you, and the team said, yeah, okay, we'll run on you, and they just haven't had an answer. I know Anthony Walker going down hurts, but I think it's deeper than that. John Johnson III played really well, and that was good to see. Let's take a look at the highest graded defenders in Week 15. You've got John Johnson III, highest graded overall defender at 93.1. Denzel Ward, highest graded corner in Week 15 at 90.7. So those two kind of go hand in hand with holding the Ravens to 3 points. Having said that, the Ravens ran for over 7 yards a carry and decided they were going to try to throw on the Browns, which, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why they would do that, especially when they have a backup quarterback. I get that they had faith in Tyler Huntley, and I understand it because he played well last season. We remember, when the Ravens came up to Cleveland, when Lamar Jackson got hurt, Tyler Huntley came in and very nearly stole the game for Baltimore. So I can understand the thinking, but, sometimes you just got to simplify. Sometimes the simplest thing you could do is the best thing you could do. When you're gaining 7-8 yards a pop, when J.K. Dobbins isn't getting touched till he's almost at the first down marker, I don't know why you would ever go away from that. If anything, I would double down on that. Just put extra linemen in there, extra tight ends, and say, yeah, we're going to run at you. Go ahead and stop us. I double dare you to stop us. Because, we've just seen, the Browns have had trouble really slowing down the run against almost anybody. The Tampa Bay game might have been the one game where they've really had, much success stopping the other team. And we talked about before with the elements of this game on Saturday, that run defense is really going to be tested once again because, naturally with these elements and with the wind, probably not going to be a lot of passing, even if New Orleans or even if the Saints go down somehow in this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, I imagine it'll still be a lot of running because that's probably all you're going to be able to do in this weather.
So another guy who has consistently played well has been Myles Garrett. Garrett has played as well as anybody defensively. If the Browns had a better record, I think he would be in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think you're going to see that with a team that's right around 500. Pro Football Focus tweets this out. Highest pass rush win rate this season, and Myles Garrett atop of Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons, better than 25, almost 26% pass rush win rate for Myles Garrett. And that's getting double teamed and chipped and the like. That's how good he has been. Myles Garrett also came out last week and said, he was defending Joe Woods. Woods talked about what that meant to him today.
It means a lot. He's definitely the leader of our defense. I really had no idea, honestly, that happened. But we always just try to put our playmakers, put guys on defense in position to have success. And I felt like we've done that better lately. But definitely hearing him say that makes me feel confident in what we're doing.
And again, Myles Garrett's had a great year. If the Browns' record was better, you'd hear him mention Defensive Player of the Year, I think.
No question about it. And I think that award does get tied to, wins and losses. And, as good as Garrett's been, especially considering he had those injuries, from that car accident way back in September, that caused him to miss the Falcons game. Who knows how much better his stats are going to be. And you saw in that game alone just how different the Browns are without Myles Garrett. And it's clear, he's performing at a high level. We saw him take over that Tampa game, late in the fourth quarter and overtime. Pretty much single-handedly helped shut down Tom Brady and gave the Browns a chance to win that game, which they did. So you're seeing Myles Garrett start to, turn that athletic ability, turn that potential into big-time production. Not that he hasn't at any point in his career, but that he's doing it at a sustained, consistent level. And that's good to see. That's the kind of thing you want out of your superstar player, is to play like a superstar, to be that kind of player on a day in, day out basis. And it seems like Myles Garrett is continuing to get there. It's always, that's what you always want out of your superstars. They're not always going to give it to you because they're human after all. But if you can get that from them more often than not, you're going to be in good shape. And that also comes with the fact that the Browns just haven't blitzed a lot with Joe Woods. They just usually rush 4, and the fact that Garrett is, like you said, getting those double teams, getting those chips, that he's still, winning that pass rush as much as he is, tells you just how much different it could be. Maybe if he were in a more aggressive scheme where he had, maybe they were sending 5 or 6 more often in certain situations.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and we'll see if that's something that they evolve into, if that's a change that they make moving forward. Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take another timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason and talk a little bit more about Kevin Stefanski's system and how it fits Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Fellow Cleveland Browns lover, I want to know what you guys think about Anthony Schwartz. Do you really think he's still incomplete? I feel like he has the speed, but I feel like he's just having a controversial year. I thought the kid was going to be like the next Tyreek Hill. I think they just need to learn how to put him in situations where he could be successful in. The other one is I want to see Jerome Ford run. I want to see the kid play. I've seen him in the preseason, and I saw what I like. I want to see what he can do. I want your thoughts on all the Browns rookies. Woods, in particular, I think his name Michael Woods, the wide receiver we got. Even though he didn't play much, I want to see more of him. David Bell, he has to grow on me a little bit.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, when you look at the rookie class, they didn't have the first-round pick because of the trade. They traded it out of the second round. Martin Emerson has been outstanding. Cade York has been a little bit of a disappointment. I'm intrigued by Woods. I want to see more of him. David Bell, I'm not surprised. Possession, the underneath guys take a little bit more time to develop because the game's a little different, speed of the game's a little different. And Schwartz, he's got the speed you can't teach. He's banged up again, though. He can't seem to stay on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, it's unfortunate for Schwartz, but I mean, the number one thing about, the number one ability you need as a professional football player is availability. And right now, it's just not the case with Anthony Schwartz, and it's tough to see, just the concussion he's got right now, obviously, it's put him in a tough spot. He's obviously got the speed. We saw that with that end-around touchdown he had against Tampa Bay. That speed has been there. We've just really never seen it in a situation where, it's just a deep ball, just a deep go on the ball, and they give him a shot at one-on-one coverage. That's never been there. It's been something that's kind of been talked about for 2 years, and, for a multitude of reasons. That just hasn't been there. So, I mean, it remains a question if we're going to see that, what's going to happen with Anthony Schwartz going into 2023, whether they draft another receiver to kind of replace him, maybe another speed guy. I don't know what's going to happen with that. And, going back to what he was saying about the rookie class, you're right, Martin Emerson has been tremendous. I think he's gone above and beyond what you should expect from a third-round pick. I think he's proven he could be, a star corner. He could be a key piece of the secondary for quite a few years. And I think when you're talking about drafts, when you're talking about, players after the second round, you're looking for players to pop in a positive way. You're not looking necessarily for guys who are going to be Pro Bowlers from day one. That's just so rare that if you're going to spend all your time looking for that right away, you're going to be looking a very long time for something like that to happen. So like I said, you're looking for pops, and obviously we've seen David Bell, Michael Woods have some moments. Jerome Ford has looked good at times in kick returns. Perrion Winfrey's started to come to life a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Alex Wright has had plenty of nice moments throughout his short time kind of rotating in a defensive end. And I think there is some concern about Cade York, but I'm not nearly ready to give up on him. I think we'll have to see what an offseason does for him, how he learns how to kick in the cold. Because I think that was always going to be the biggest adjustment is you can make all these kicks wherever, but until you go through it in Cleveland, until you learn how to kick in the stadium, you're going to have a tough time. And we've seen plenty of kickers, who struggle as rookies, kind of figure it out, maybe in their second, third year, and then they kind of take off from there. They're not always Evan McPherson, who start great and stay great. You kind of have to have some patience. We know Andrew Berry's usually patient with rookies. We'll see how far it goes.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'm not ready to give up on him, but certainly you took him in the fourth round. You thought it would be better than it has been. This is a concerning trend. So from weeks 1 to 12, Browns were 6th in offensive EPA since week 13. They're 30th. Now, of course, it also is a new quarterback in a new system who hasn't played in so long. But those are numbers that you do not want to see relative to your offense.
No, not at all. And obviously, like you said, I think the big reason for it is Deshaun Watson coming back, is you're changing so much when you change the quarterback, because, I mean, he's the one guy who's touching the ball every single play, who's going to have so much influence in it. Guys have to relearn, how a quarterback throws, where he likes to put the football, how he likes to throw it, those sorts of things. The line has to learn, relearn how to block in certain situations. Oh, he's going to extend the play. There's these adjustments you have to make. And I think that's where, some of this stuff gets bogged down. The other issue, I think, is just, Ethan Pocic not being in the lineup, I think, has hurt this run game. And, Hjalte Froholt, I just don't know. He just hasn't. That's where I think you start to see a drop off at the center position. You know, Nick Harris looked like he was going to be the guy. Then Ethan Pocic took over because Nick Harris got hurt in the preseason opener in Jacksonville. And Pocic has done really well. Then there's been a pretty considerable drop-off, I think, from Pocic to Froholt at center. It's nothing against Froholt, but he's just not that same type of center. And I think since then we've really seen, you know, the Browns' run game really just not perform as it's been the first 11 games of the season, even when Jacoby Brissett was in and they were facing 8 or 9 man boxes more often. So you would have to hope that if Pocic gets back, you know, with these more spread out boxes, that maybe the run game can kind of get back to where it was and that can open everything up. But again, last 2 weeks, you know, you're playing really good defenses in Cincinnati and Baltimore. You're playing two of the better defenses in football there.
Amari Cooper talked about Deshaun Watson and what he has seen from him in Kevin Stefanski's offense.
I mean, he's still himself, you know what I mean? I think it doesn't matter what system he plays in. I mean, he's still going to do a lot of the same things. And then he's also brought over some stuff that he liked when he was at Houston, you know. So I think that tandem, you know, is good. You know, they work good together. They communicate a lot. And it's not just Deshaun and Kevin's system. It's Kevin saying, hey, you know, what's some of the stuff that you like? He's always communicating with us about, you know, how he sees things, and he asks us how we see things. It's really just trying to get on the same page. So that when it comes to game day, you know, we just go out there and do our thing.
And you can kind of see that evolving with Watson and his receivers. Michael Woods in that Ravens game, he kind of was telling him, go deep, I'll find you.
Yeah, it's again those adjustments you kind of have to make midstream. I mean, when you spend 3 months doing one thing and then all of a sudden, you know, at some point someone tells you, okay, now you got to do this instead. Naturally, you're going to not be as good because you've been so focused on doing it one way for so long. So naturally, there's going to be an adjustment period. And I think, you know, all these guys are going through it. We've seen, you know, the chemistry start to kind of come there with Peoples-Jones, with Njoku, with Cooper to an extent. You know, that's only going to get better with time as they see more of Deshaun Watson, as they, you know, take more reps with him in games and those sorts of things. The more they work together, the better it's going to get, and the more often and more second nature is going to be when they understand when the quarterback's scrambling, the number one job, get open or find a pocket in the defense and just kind of settle in. That's what's going to, you know, that takes time. That's habitual in some cases to just, you know, have that switch go on to decide, oh, I got to do this now. So it just takes time. We'll see it. We'll see how much time it takes if it happens this year or if we have to wait till next year to see it, though.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention a little bit more to the Saints. Saints and Browns Saturday. First Energy Stadium supposed to be cold, windy, and snowy. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Browns getting ready for a Saturday afternoon matchup against the New Orleans Saints Christmas Eve. Kevin Stefanski talked about the unique challenge of defending one of the Saints quarterbacks, Taysom Hill, as well as the defense that's getting better and better.
It's really interesting. They do a nice job. He can line up at quarterback, at running back. at tight end, at a wide receiver type position. He plays all the special teams for him. So he's a weapon in his versatility. He does everything well. He's a very, very physical runner. Doesn't run like a quarterback per se. He runs like a fullback. Can throw the ball to all areas of the field. There's no limitations to what he can do in that regard. So it presents a huge challenge. And then not to mention, you defend him as a quarterback and he can just line up and block. So they do a nice job. I think they utilize him in a very, very smart way. And it's credit to them. They're using, a really versatile football player. Obviously, like we've talked about in the past, you're looking for consistency from your football team. And then within the units, you're always looking for consistency. But sometimes it can be a few different things. It can be opponent-driven. It can be just certain things that you're doing offensively, defensively. But those are the type of things that we focus on week to week in practice, this week, making sure that we're consistent in all three phases.
And, Tim, when you look at it, the Saints' running game is a concern. You have Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill. They do use Andy Dalton. You may not see a lot of him if it's really windy and, the below freezing temperatures or the below zero temperature wind chill that you're expecting.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially, if you consider guys who could be out of the game. I mean, there's a chance Chris Olave can miss the game. So, you're looking at a lot of running, and obviously, Taysom Hill is one of the most unique players in the NFL because, anytime you get in the game, you have no idea what's coming. He could run it, he could throw it, he could do all sorts of different things. It's a tough matchup out there, and that can really, be an advantage in a game like this, what we're expecting on Saturday, because pretty much everybody knows there's going to be a lot of running the football. I don't think there's any secret about that. Running, maybe some short passes, but that's about it. When you have the ability to have a player do multiple things, make a defense account for all 11 players in the run game, that can really play to your advantage, I think, as an offense. So that's where, New Orleans going to have an advantage, especially because, like I said, you don't know what Taysom Hill's going to do out there. And we've seen Alvin Kamara as one of the best backs in the league. So good running the ball as he is a receiver. So there's going to be a lot of what the Saints do on offense that just, there's going to be some trickiness involved. And, the Browns are going to have to stay disciplined, and they're going to have to be really strong at tackling to get the job done on Saturday and really to slow this New Orleans offense down.
Before the break, you mentioned Ethan Pocic. Browns have missed him. He has been, eligible to be activated from IR. Kevin Stefanski said they're hoping he can play. So this is from Browns Wire. 3 things the return of Ethan Pocic would mean for the Browns. Number 1, run game. It's not been the same since his absence, so we'll get into that a little bit more. 2, Pocic can continue to earn a big payday this offseason. That's relative to the Browns signing him to an extension. And 3, the Browns will finally have a fully healthy line for the first time with Deshaun Watson under center. The other part of that was the grades for Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, the 2 guards, Pro Football Focus grades, significantly higher when Ethan Pocic is in there because they don't have to help out with the center position.
Yeah, and I think, the center is the more underrated, probably the most underrated position on the offensive line because that's the linchpin. They're the ones making the line calls and all those sorts of things. So when you have that position taken care of, when you have a stable, good player there, it makes everybody else's job better because then you don't have to have extra responsibilities. You don't have to worry about, the middle of your offensive line collapsing or being a liability in certain situations. And if Ethan Pocic can come back for Saturday, that's a huge boost to this offensive line, just because, again, like I said, you're going to be running the football a lot. You obviously want, all hands on deck running the football, 5, maybe 6 or even 7 offensive linemen in certain situations. And you look at what the Saints are defensively, they're in the bottom half of the NFL in rushing yards allowed and rushing yards per attempt. So the Saints are not that good of a run defense. Obviously, the weather is going to help kind of dictate, how the game's going to be played. So they're going to try and lean more in stopping the run. And then it comes down to execution. Can your offensive line make blocks? Can they get to the second level? Can they open up the holes for Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, even Deshaun Watson in certain situations? Where, like I said with Taysom Hill, and the Browns are going to have a quarterback who can be that 11th player that defense just have to worry about in the run game, although probably not nearly to the extent of Taysom Hill. But if you get Pocic back, like I said, huge upgrade, and it's one you're probably going to need in a game like this more than either of the last two.
Yeah, the other thing with quarterbacks like Hill, like Watson, inclement weather, defense better tackle well. The defense that tackles better is usually going to be the one that's more successful in a game like this.
Yeah, and I mean, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, two of the toughest backs to tackle for very different reasons. So if you think it's hard to tackle Nick Chubb, just wait till it's like, single digits or maybe just 10 degrees and the wind chill's below zero. And Nick Chubb, goes running at you and runs through you. It's going to feel like, maybe a car hits you or something like that. So both teams are going to have to strap up, buckle the chin straps a little tighter, and, just be ready for a very physical, tough game, because I don't see any way it's not on Saturday. It's probably going to be one of those games that, you saw in those film strips with the 50s and from the 50s and 60s, where there was a lot of running, not many passes. I think that's kind of what we see on Saturday, kind of some old school football going on by the lake.
Tim Bielik, plain dealer, cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of you out there.
Happy holidays to you as well, Tim Bielik. Make sure you check him out. Really good stuff, plain dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a time out. We will continue talking Browns. Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I've said it before, and I say it again. We need to fire Joe Woods. I'm pretty sure he's a great guy, but with the defense we have and all those things before Anthony Walker and all them got hurt, I feel like we should have been at least still up to par. We had too much of a talented defense to be losing, in my opinion, to teams who we should have beat. I think next year this division is going to go to either Cleveland or Cincinnati, both the Ohio teams in the AFC North. I just don't see Baltimore paying Lamar that much money, and the Steelers, God only knows what they're up to. I just want to know you guys' thoughts. Go Browns. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, also host of the All Eyez on Cleveland podcast. Brad, I agree. What are your thoughts on Joe Woods?
I could not agree more, Dave. I think that Joe Woods has proven over a 3-year period. There's enough body of work there that there's no excuses. And you know, a lot of people are fear that like he's going to save his job down the stretch here. And I just feel like, Dave, like that this front office and Kevin Stefanski are smart enough to not let a good defensive performances against the Texans and a Tyler Huntley-led Ravens, Andy Dalton, Taylor Heineke, whoever the Steelers run out there at quarterback, right? Like, you can't let those good defensive performances sway you off of what you've seen all year. I mean, the damage has already been done with this defense. They've had multiple blunders this year that have cost them games. They've underperformed greatly. I just think it's unfathomable for me to think that a team that was willing to make a win-at-all-cost move like acquiring Deshaun Watson won't act accordingly this offseason and get better where it's so obvious they could get better at defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm the last guy that's going to sit here and scream that you need to fire this guy or that guy. This defense, it needs a adjustment. This defense is reactive, it's passive, and guys like Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, John Johnson III, Grant Delpit, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, those aren't guys that are passive. Those are guys that you should be turning loose and go create havoc. And yeah, we're not doing that defensively.
They're not. It's been he's not innovative enough. He's not imaginative enough. I've talked about this before. He doesn't. None of his game plans, like the best defenses in the NFL, Dave, I feel they morph themselves every week into whoever they have to be to beat your opponent. And you just don't see the Browns defense doing it. It's just like, this is who we are every week. Here's what we run. And there's no adjustment. There's no week in, week out, in-game adjustments. All of those things are lacking. And it's very, very like, this is us. Here we are. And I hate that philosophy. Like, they should be changing every week to take whatever you have to do to beat your opponent, you turn into that for that week. And they have the players to do that. They have versatile players. They have, like you're mentioning, aggressive players that can adapt. And they're just not using these players correctly, in my opinion. And it's just, 3 years of Joe Woods. Like, last year, a late season uptick in the defense was good enough to save his job, but you cannot let that fool you again. That would be dramatically it would just be a dramatic mistake for this front office and for Kevin Stefanski to run it back with him again. I just can't imagine them making the mistake. In fact, I think they probably already made their decision, Dave.
Yeah, I would think there's a fair possibility that that's true. The other thing that I will say, I think they made a miscalculation with defensive tackle. You can't
100%.
You can't pair the defensive tackles with the linebackers that you have. And I like your line. There are pieces of linebacking core. I see what you're doing. You want to be fast. You want to play sideline to sideline. You're going to be a little undersized so you can run with it. But you can't do that with light defensive tackles. That doesn't work.
It doesn't. And I think we'll see that adjustment in the offseason. I think they'll. You bring in a guy with a new philosophy, and I think that they will spend on bringing in, a starting caliber defensive tackle. I don't know where they evaluate Perion Winfrey right now, but you definitely need to bring in at least a starter and a rotational guy and work from there. But they definitely need to upgrade that room, and it's never been more obvious. So I think that will get the attention it deserves this offseason.
I would agree. Deshaun Watson spoke today, talked about his growth in this system.
Each and every week has been getting better, and that's what I like to see so much. Not so much of just, hey, this is a play, oh, I remember this. It's more of just kind of, all right, each week, am I getting better? Am I getting more sharp with my game and operating and being a quarterback in this system? Because it's a learning curve for myself, too. This is a different system than what I was back in Houston, and I had for 5 years. So, this is a totally different change for me, and I'm trying to adapt as much as, the coaching staff is trying to adapt to me.
Brad, I don't know about you. When I hear him talk, he's the kind of guy you want leading a high-powered offense of a playoff team. He talks about winning, doesn't care about, people want to see big plays, I want to win. And he talks about getting better. And the things that you hear from him are what all good quarterbacks tend to say.
Agreed. He speaks very well about the quarterback position. He's a very smart quarterback. He knows how to win. You saw that in the Ravens game with him, maybe taking a sack instead of throwing into a bad, double coverage at the end of the game, where, a turnover in the past has cost them games like that, but he was willing to take a sack. He understands the game at time and down all the time. The thing that I see most, or I saw most on Saturday night, Dave, is he looked more comfortable than he's ever been. And it looked like it was his offense, right? There was some ownership there. You saw some of the moxie back, him celebrating a little bit after some runs with the touchdown pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones. You haven't seen that in the first 2 weeks. It really felt like he's taking ownership over the offense, and he looked very comfortable running it for the first time, I thought.
Yeah, there were elements there that looked effortless for him, which, the first couple of weeks he was, you could see it kind of, he was thinking it. Here there were elements against the Ravens. He's just outplaying. And I think the more you see of that, the more dangerous this offense gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And I think, you saw him, you kind of barking at Mike Woods on the one play, and then, he's talking to somebody else. He was taking, charge of like, hey, cut it up towards the end zone. And you saw him barking at some guys. And I think that's good. That's what you need from your quarterback. You need somebody that's going to say, they kind of needed that, like, come on, follow me. I'm going to show you how we get this done. And I think he provides that factor.
Brad Ward and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Joe Woods about Taysom Hill. How do you defend that Saints quarterback? Also take a look at some more offensive stats that are impressive for the Browns. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the All Eyez on Cleveland podcast. Saints coming to town Saturday, expected to be cold, below zero, wind chill, windy, and some snow in the forecast. Joe Woods, defensive coordinator, talked about Taysom Hill, one of the quarterbacks for the Saints, and some of the problems he possesses.
He's one of the most unique players in the league. I think they do a good job of using him. They're really running multiple offenses where, he's on the field, he can play a lot of different positions. So it's definitely a challenge. But I think we're putting together a good plan.
And, Brad, I don't know about you, but Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara and the way the Browns' defense has been against the run, that's a concern. I know the defense played better. They turned the ball over. They still gave up over 7 yards a run against the Ravens.
Yeah, the Ravens did them a massive favor by not continuing to run the ball at them, which is still something I have no idea why they did. But, Taysom Hill is just looking at like last week, for example, 11 snaps at quarterback, 3 in the backfield, 5 at tight end, 2 in the slot, 3 out wide. Plus he returns kicks and punts. So he is a weapon for sure. And he'll throw a good ball every once in a while and beat you at quarterback. And he certainly is a good runner and hard to tackle. So in this weather, tackling and being sound in the run game, which they have not been all year, will be critical. So they will have to make the proper adjustments there. I think one thing that the weather does do for this defense is that you can really just key on the run a lot more. And they should be able to do that and try to take away Kamara and all of their options in the run games, including Taysom Hill. But the weather takes away the pass game a little bit, so it makes it a little bit easier to kind of key on that, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. And Andy Dalton's the other quarterback, so it'll be interesting to see how those snaps get divvied up if it is, in fact, the weather game that is expected to be. So Pro Football Focus, the highest graded offensive lineman at each position this season, the left guard, Joel Bitonio. So, and then the center is Cleveland Heights native, Jason Kelsey, Travis's brother. But Bitonio has been that good, and his grade has gone down a little bit with Pocic out. Posic's coming back, but Bitonio just keeps playing at a really high level.
Incredible, actually, that he has maintained that level with everything going on around him, all the changes with Froholt at center, Pocic at center. They have been through it. Wyatt Teller has had a very tough year. I don't think he's fully healthy, really, but very tough year after getting paid. But Bitonio has been steady. He's the rock on that offensive line, right? And he's Pro Bowl bound again. So an impressive year from him, especially with everything going on around him. Guys, even Conklin not really being fully healthy at times, Teller struggling at times. And then now changing the run game, too, to this, more of shotgun run approach that they've had with some slower developing stuff. Bitonio still grades out every week very highly. So it's impressive.
I'm with you with Teller, too. A calf injury for a offensive lineman that's pretty significant. So I agree with you. This is interesting as well. Most rushes of 10-plus yards this season, and the leader, Nick Chubb, ahead of Josh Jacobs. So again, Chubb adjusting to running more out of the shotgun, it's an adjustment. He'll figure it out. The advantage is he's not going to have as many people in the box with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. So they'll figure it out.
He will figure it out. He's started to already. And, what teams have done is they've taken away the cutback lane a lot here. We've seen recently, especially with the gun run stuff. Teams are being, they're bringing safeties up and they're taking away what Chubb, his vision is just kind of naturally against the grain as you see him take that cutback lane all the time for big, big gains, as that stat proves right there. And teams have consciously taken that away from him, and he's kind of had to find the crease, in these slower developing gun run to the outside stuff. And I think he did a much better job, especially in the second half. And I think they really wore down the Ravens defense more than anything with the run game last week. But he kind of is just finding, one cut and go instead of, dancing a little bit too much at first as you wait for that stuff to develop. The slower developing runs are tough, right? And his vision has to kind of adjust to not having that cutback lane available to him sometimes.
All right, before I let you go, here is a stat that you will like relative to the run game that the Browns are likely going to have to do this week. So last week, Browns offense put up 143 yards rushing against a top 3 defense, the Ravens. This week, they face a defense that's 21st in yards per carry, 4.6, that gave up 231 yards on the ground last Sunday against the Falcons. So there's your your recipe for success. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, and continue to run the ball.
Yeah, it bodes really well for them. You know, I worry about Nick Chubb's foot a little bit. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, I wonder if, you know, you wouldn't, even if they were mathematically eliminated, if we wouldn't see Ford in a game like this, right? And maybe kind of just let Chubb rest with the foot. And, you know, really the interesting thing, Dave, is at this point in the season, like, I kind of feel like I would just like to see them cut it loose with Watson a little bit, but the weather isn't allowing it. So, it will, they will have to run the ball to win this game, and it's probably the weather's not going to really allow them to cut it loose. So, it does bode well probably they should win this game, right? Like, they're better than the Saints. They should win this game. So, it'll be interesting. And these last three will be interesting. You know, just take care of your own business and see what happens, I suppose. But, you know, I'm not a huge believer, Dave, in one season's momentum carrying into another. So, you know, this is all about evaluation, really, right? Like, what works, what doesn't. You know, next season will be next season. But, you know, getting into a rhythm, Watson, Stefanski, all that stuff is critical.
Yeah, I agree. You want to make sure that that they get the feel for what works and how they can expand the offense as well. Brad Ward, as always, man, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Dave. You're the best.
Have a good one. Brad Ward, make sure you check him out, brownswire.com. The Orange and Brown Report. Now Brad is with. He also is the host of the All Eyez on Cleveland podcast. Always good stuff from Brad Ward. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.